the following topics during our meeting. So we're just going to start, as we typically do, with a round of introductions with everybody on the call. Then we're going to spend a few minutes looking at some of the recent ongoing development that's occurred, what will be taking place with development as we undergo the transition both between, Generation 2 as well as Generation 3 of Mifos and the transition to an Apache Fineract development community. And then we'll spend the majority of the call focusing on Summer of Code for 2017, talking about mentoring opportunities, talking about possible project ideas, and just the program in general. So let me start by moving on to the introductions. So I'll just, if you're muted, unmute yourself when I come to you and just say your name, what organization with, where you're calling from, and maybe a sentence or so about what you're working on or hoping to work on. So Alex, you come up first, so we'll start with you.
Okay, so my name is Alex. I'm independent software developer based in Portugal. At the moment, I'm working with Mifos on a project for a Mexican bank. It is with intermediary version of Fineract, kind of. It's a private fork at the moment, so I have a couple of extensions. The one that is most notable is an extension to the group loan mechanism, where you have group loans that are configurable on an individual level. So not like the default version that exists right now in Fineract. So that's the main goal, and as part of the development, I've also added a rough prototype for the API documentation, which posed a couple of challenges because I tried to use Swagger, but the way that the REST API is developed, there are a couple of challenges, as I said, where you have to do a lot of manual work. So that's roughly about it, what I'm working on at the moment.
Thanks, Alex. And then Avik, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, this is Avik from Bangalore, India. I'm working for a 4-year-old startup, NovoPay, which is primarily into payments, but we are into microfinance as well, and into micro enterprise loans, then merchandise loans, a whole lot of different stuff like so. Currently, I'm working on a module which allows you to onboard VCs, and there are a lot of stuff regarding profit sharing and other stuff. That's about it.
Okay, well, thanks for joining, Avik, and we're looking forward to hopefully, lining you up with a project to have you mentor for Summer of Code. And then Boniface, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Boniface. I'm coming from South African Limited, Tanzania.
Okay, thanks.
I'm currently working as a software developer. I'm really interested to work on Android application.
Okay, good. Well, we'll get you connected with Rajan and the team to help contributing to Android, as we're going to be releasing the new version soon, and we have more work to go in there. And then thank you. And then Divyanshu, is your audio working? It says you're offline, so I'm not sure if you'll be able to introduce yourself. But Mohit, we'll let you go ahead. So
hello everyone, I'm Mohit. I'm from India. I've been working for Mifos since Google Summer of Code 2016 and looking to work this year also with Mifos on community app.
Okay, thanks Mohit for joining. And then Nikhil, I'll let you introduce yourself. So Oh, you're still on mute, Nikhil, if you were trying to talk. We'll go on to Sindoro. Sindoro, you want to say hello?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sendoro from an organization called Single Africa Limited, focusing on microfinance and ERP-related business from Tanzania. Thank you.
Thank you, Sindoro. And then Tarun, you want to say hello?
Hello everyone, I am Tarun Mudgal from New Delhi, India. I'm a final year BTech computer science student, and I've been contributing to Mifos since last almost 10 months while applying for GSOC 2016, and well, it's now GSOC 2017, so I'll be looking forward to it now.
Thank you, Tarun. And then Anthony, I'll let you say hello.
Hello, this is Anthony from Kenya, and been working on mentoring mobile money integration and USSD. But unfortunately, we didn't finish the mobile money integration, so looking forward to work on that.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. And then Pranjal, we're just doing introductions. If you want to briefly say hello.
Sorry for being late, guys. I am Pranjal Goswami. I'm from Bangalore, and I have been a GSOC mentor in the last GSOC. I've been associated with Mifos for a little over a year now.
Oh, Pranjal, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Oh, okay. Oh, great. So, okay, I thought you might have gotten cut off. Well, thank you for joining in. And we got off to a late start because I had a couple different technical difficulties. So.
I see.
Okay. Well, we've got some other folks joining, but we'll introduce them later on. So we'll move on with the meeting. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes, giving a brief development update. As I think it's been a couple months since we had our last developer meeting focused on development, as we used some of the previous time slots for a webinar, and then I think we used the other time slot for a deployment roundtable. So hopefully, you all over the past few months have been installing and testing out some of the releases we've made. So we did make, 2 functional releases of Mifos X, and then those have been supported by, the corresponding releases to the Apache Fineract platform. So regarding Apache Fineract, we now have 3 official releases we've made as part of incubation, and we're going to soon, call for a vote to graduate to being a top-level project. So one of the, criteria we're still looking to improve upon before we do that is bringing on more committers to Apache Fineract. So if you want to, make some contributions or continue to participate in the project via the mailing list at all, we're looking to, be able to nominate a few individuals to become committers who have been contributing over the past several months. So keep doing that, and hopefully we could make you a committer. But we are going to call to graduate soon, and we're hoping we'll, pass that vote. And so on the functional side, we did release in 16.1101 the SMS campaigns module. So hopefully you've been able to try that out. And then in 16.12.01, building off of some of the work Musoni did, we incorporated into our platform the entity checks for data tables, which allow you to create basic workflows by including data tables at specific stages of each entity. And then in terms of what we have coming up, for the next release, we're looking to ship a lot of the Google Summer of Code work that was completed for the most part last year, but we've had some QA items and some code merges that have blocked us from integrating it. So we're going to be shipping the reskin for the web app user interface very soon once we complete some remaining QA. And then that will also allow us to ship the notifications framework that Adion worked on. And then we've had a lot of enhancements go into the Android app. We actually should be shipping that today, in fact, so we'll send out some announcement there. And then we have a few pieces to wrap up with credit bureau integration as well as mobile money integration, and hoping to ship those very soon as well. And then we're looking to continue to review and merge other contributions that have been coming from partners as well as volunteers, as we recently participated in Google Code and had a number of small issues that high schoolers worked on. And so as we look towards what community contributions are needed, like I have a small list of items here, and a lot of these might carry over to potential Google Summer of Code projects. But I did want to spend a couple minutes just talking about what the focus of development will be in 2016 or 2017, and we'll have some other announcements and more sessions to talk about this at a more in-depth level. So you probably recall, previously in the year we talked more about the next generation of Mifos coming, and so in 2017, the primary efforts of the core development team that is supported by the Mifos initiative are going to be towards generation 3 of Mifos. And so with generation 3, the major changes there are moving to a brand new what we call a cloud native architecture, where everything is delivered via microservices. So at the development level, it's going to make it much more modular and much easier for developers to build new innovations on top of the platform. And then from the functional level, the big shift we're making is that with this new architecture, the system is much more scalable. And really what we're positioning Generation 3 as is a digital financial services platform, rather than just a standalone core banking system. And so the goal, of Generation 3 is to be hosted at the level of an entire country and provide, one common platform with one single point of connectivity for an entire country's worth of institutions. So we'll be sending out, more announcements about Generation 3, and the first, release of the basic components of that will be coming in the next 1 to 2 months. And then we're going to be hosting a Tech Days event in the spring to discuss that. So we're really excited about everything that's going into Generation 3, as the community over the past decade has continued to evolve. So the first generation of Mifos was focused on really being a management information system for Grameen style joint liability group lending. And then the second generation of Mifos, Mifos X, which we're currently on, was focused on being a true core banking platform for financial inclusion. And then we're really excited about now moving to this application framework architecture and providing a widespread digital financial services platform. So we'll be having more announcements about Generation 3 and how the community will shape around that. But in terms of what ongoing development to Generation 2 will look like, throughout 2017, we are really going to focus on stabilizing and bringing to the best performance and maturity that we can for Mifos X. So we're not going to have any major feature development led by the core team, but that's why for Google Summer of Code, some of the outstanding projects I'd like to have led by interns, and then we're doing a much better job of engaging with volunteers to work on some outstanding projects, and also just want to put the call out to partners to continue to contribute. So we're going to be focused on doing minor enhancements, trying to bring in features from the community, and then fixing the most critical bugs throughout the year. But active development of new major features will be happening on Generation 3, and then we recognize it'll probably be 1 to 2 years before there starts to be migration from Gen 2 to Gen 3. So that's why throughout 2017 we want to continue adding in small features and really make sure Generation 2 is fully stable. So let me pause there for a moment if there are any questions members of the community have just about what will be occurring with development in 2017. Okay, so if no questions there right now, we'll move into discussing a bit about Google Summer of Code. So I already gave the updates on the FINRAC transition. Okay, so for Google Summer of Code, hopefully you saw the email there, and it has a link to the program timeline. But we're hoping to participate in Google Summer of Code once again. I believe this would be our 5th or might be our 6th year of participation. But our applications are due February 9th, and we're hoping to get accepted once again, and hopefully bring on at least as large of a class of interns as we did last year. And last year, we did have a lot of interest, and we had many more students and qualified mentors than we were allotted slots. So I'm hoping this year we might get a few more slots, and also be able to get everybody connected with projects. But as we work on our application, which is due the 9th, we really need to build out our ideas list and have each of those ideas be strongly vetted and make sure they're tangible and have enough details. And then we also need to have corresponding mentors for each of those ideas and have a strong group of mentors in place. So I think based on the remaining ideas we had from last year and some of the projects we want to continue on, we should be able to come together with a good list of project ideas. And then based on the initial response from community members, I think we'll also have a strong group of mentors in place. So in terms of our application, we'll have it be pretty similar to how it was last year, and hopefully we'll get the opportunity to participate in Google Summer of Code once again. And then I'll send along to everybody that's raised their hand about being interested in mentoring, what it means to be a mentor. And hopefully, once we get confirmation that we can participate, we'll have a call to have, past mentors share their experience with current mentors and discuss, what it means to mentor. But, we'll just take a moment to review what students worked on last year. So you can take a look at the page here, but we had, three projects on the web app front, 2 on the mobile side, and then 2 more on integrations. And so the first project, that's relatively complete. We're waiting to ship that once we have the reskin shipped. But with the first project, that's also another one where we could probably continue to extend and add new functionality. So that possibly could be another project for this year. And then with our Android app for field officers, we did add in significant functionality, but we always need to continue improving it and adding in new functionalities. So we will have a project idea around the field officer app, really looking at version 4 of that. And then even though we will have the reskin and the refactoring of the web app UI complete, there are a number of new screens and new designs that we can implement, and I think that can constitute a project. And then the offline access project that Mohit worked on, we could probably extend that and try and continue that and bring that to successful completion. And then likewise with mobile money integration, we have other countries and other APIs we can integrate there. And then Nikhil's credit bureau integration project is nearly merged, but we have other work we could continue in adding in, new points of integration as well as supporting additional countries. And then we are close to finally getting a version 1 of our Android self-service app out there, but we'd also look to have a project around the second version of that. So that's just a brief look at 2016 and then how some of those might carry over to 2017. And I think I covered, most of some of these items right now. But before we open the floor, to discussion of needs in the community that would be good fit for Google Summer of Code or project mentors would like to work on, I'll just give a brief rundown of some of the other, possible projects that I'll make sure are on the list, and then we can, vet if they're a good fit or not. So as I said before, on the mobile app side, we want to do the next version of our field officer app, as well as the next version of our self-service app. And this time around, I know last year we didn't provide as much clarity around requirements on both of those, but we have a good number of product management volunteers assisting us right now. And I'm hoping for each of these projects, we can have some clear user stories, wireframes, and requirements in place so the students can really focus purely on development. And then one project that we never got kicked off last year because we didn't find, we couldn't get allocated an intern for it was making a web version of our self-service app. So we've got an initial code base there and a volunteer drafting out some of the user stories there. So I'm hoping we'll present that as a project. And then for our data import tool, we have a design that Nazir has created to integrate that fully into the Apache Fineract platform, as well as a number of other enhancements. And we have a senior volunteer that's taken up work on that, but there will be remaining work to do there. So I'm hoping we could have a project around that, as this is one of the tools that's most required in the community. And just around testing in general, we had some good prospects last year for working on security and penetration testing. So I think that's another project we might be able to bring forward. And then a lot of our partners are starting to, as they scale to larger institutions, running into, some performance hiccups. So we could have a project centered around, doing some of that performance testing. And then from the web app perspective, as I said on the previous slide, we want to continue to enhance the current UI and redesign a number of the pages there. And then we also want to continue working on the offline capabilities that Mohit has built out. And then we do have a number of areas where we have had highly requested items and outstanding needs in terms of other modules. So we're looking to maybe get some work done on the collateral management module, as that's come up pretty often, and we have pretty clear requirements, but we haven't built out anything for the community just yet. We also, are looking to build out a lightweight CRM type module to, handle claims or complaints and just track the status of those. We still want to deliver, a solution around ad hoc reporting, as that's been something GSOC interns and the community has worked on, but not shipped yet. And then we also want a lightweight module for insurance. And then another module that I put there could be having more of a self-guided configuration wizard to help users get onto the system for the first time. And then there's also these other features that could potentially go into the system. So we've got the back end in place for our surveys interface and PPI right now, but there's little in terms of a front end in administering those surveys. And then there have been a number of accounting enhancements around end of period processing, fixed asset registers, recurring journal entries, bank reconciliation, so we could try and bundle into one project. We did have a team of volunteers at SanDisk that was going to work on two-factor authentication, but they never got very far there. So that's another project. And then line of credit continues to come up. And then on the integration front, we talked about credit bureaus, continuing the work there, as well as continuing the work on mobile money. And then there also is the opportunity to do, integration with one of the alternative credit scoring providers like Lendo. And then we have, the existing Mifos Stellar integration that has some remaining UI and back end work to do. So those were some of the projects just at looking at what we've had on the roadmap, what we were talking about last year that we could potentially list out. And so all these are still on generation 2. And so before we open the floor to discussion, I'll just talk a little bit about the split between Mifos X, the distribution and the corresponding apps, and then the Apache Fineract platform, as well as Gen 2 versus Gen 3. So in terms of Gen 2 versus Gen 3, it's likely we won't we'll have code out there for Gen 3 by the time Summer of Code begins, but it's likely the team that's working on Gen 3 and the rest of the community that's familiar with it won't be in a place to really focus on mentoring new students there. So if it's efficient and time wise use of time to have Gen 3 projects, we might try and do that. But I think the majority of projects will be on Gen 2. And then given Apache Fineract is now part of the Apache Software Foundation, any projects that are really specific and only touching the platform should ideally fall under that umbrella. But it might be the case that some of the features that go directly into the platform and aren't on a separate app, we might still put those under the umbrella of the Mifos initiative. But let me, stop talking as I realize I rambled off a long list of items, but want to now, open the floor to discussion people have about project ideas and any, features or work you think would be good to propose for Google Summer of Code. So maybe we can start with, from the perspective. So Sindoro, I know, you and a couple of your developers are on, like from the perspective of partners in the community. Are there anything, that you're needing in the platform that you think might be a good summer type project for an intern to work on for several months that would add value to the, Tanzania region that we haven't talked about here?
So far, I think I don't have that much to take, but only that we were on the accounting side. I think my colleagues was trying to work on the requirement user scenario in fixed asset management. That's the only thing we were working on for the time being. Yeah.
Okay, well, if you can provide some more of those requirements, I think there is a ticket or an open wiki page, as I know, there was a request from another partner on that, and I was waiting on getting more detailed requirements. So that is, I think, the fixed asset registry, I think that would be, a suitable project for Google Summer of Code. So if you're able to, share detailed requirements on that, that'll be very, very beneficial.
Okay, that's what we're what we're gonna provide.
Okay, thank you, Sindoro.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think most of the other folks we have on calls are more on the developer side. So are there any, outstanding or, glaring areas of, improvement or concern within the software, or even if there's, solutions you think we could provide in the community? So one area that I thought we could maybe have an intern work on, and it's not, directly tied to our software, but as we have more, innovations that get built on the platform, we do want to provide, like an app store or marketplace of sorts to find, these innovations that are powered by Mifos and powered by Apache Fineract. And so I thought a potential project could be, building out, because we use WordPress for our site, so building out a WordPress plugin or extending an existing WordPress plugin to provide, some type of like basic app store, and that integrates nicely with our, GitHub repositories and whatnot. But I was thinking, and if there's other, projects that relate to improving collaboration at the community level or making, knowledge sharing easier, we could think about that too. So.
Ed, can I ask you something?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Are there any plans to break the current Mifos X version down into modules, or will it stay like that? And,
I think especially, given all of the efforts going into Gen 3 and how that's going to be more modular, I don't think we're going to put any effort into breaking Mifos X down into modules.
Okay.
But do you have, like, how feasible is that in terms of how much effort that would take? So.
Well, it's just, I just saw it now with that project with the Mexican bank that actually you have to fork the whole project. Well, everyone knows that the code base is quite monolithic, and it would be easier if it would be broken down in different, at least project modules. But it doesn't really matter at this point. But what I wanted to say, so this was just out of interest. and I think it's not that worth to spend time with it for a GSOC project. But what I find interesting on your list, I mean, last year we tried to get this API documentation. I mean, this interactive API documentation. I don't think that this will happen this year either.
Oh, really?
Because it's just too small for a multi-month project. Although I have to say, with the current code base, there are some challenges that, I mean, it takes a long time. I had a shot at it for, let's say, for 10 days or so, and I have a rough prototype of a Swagger documentation, and actually it's also interactive with a user interface with the default one. And but I'm still not finished with. I think I counted there are like 120 REST endpoints approximately that have to be documented, and there's a lot of manual work involved. But maybe that's a thing to be considered for the next version. So what I find interesting in the list, what would help me actually immediately with my current project, is the data import tool and the configuration wizard. Because I'm working with another team in Mexico that is developing a mobile application for iOS and Android, and I'm having quite some exchange with them about how to configure an instance. So they have set up their own off-the-stock Mifos instance, and they are asking about a lot of things, like, for example, how to configure loan products and all that stuff. And so that would help immediately if we had I mean, we have a default data set actually, but together with the configuration wizard, that would really help a lot.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that is something, that could help, especially, some of the smaller and more independent users out there. So I think that's something, it'd be nice to pursue, like looking at what the requirements for that would be and coming up with a plan. And then on the data import tool, I'm not sure if you've seen the design document that Nazir, shared with the community, but if you haven't, take a look there. But with, there's three main goals with the project. We want to, one, integrate it so it's a direct part of the platform, because right now, it's standalone and users have to install everything separately, which proves problematic. And then it does, it's right now currently at the entire organization level that the templates are generated, and so want to make that at the branch or staff level so performance is better. And then we do have, a number of additional, data and functionalities that aren't yet supported, which are going to get supported. So we do have, that one individual volunteer working on it right now, but it is a pretty major project, so we can, bring on other volunteers, and it would be good, to have, if there's still work remaining, have a summer of code intern continue on it. And then going back to what you said around the interactive API documentation, I mean, even if, we think it's too small in scope, perhaps we could, couple the remaining work with a similar type of project, to improve the ability of developers to work on the platform. So I do like that, having that as a potential idea, especially if, now you've sort of identified, where the challenges and bottlenecks are. So I do think, we could still have that as an idea, as it gives, a different flavor of ideas and not all just, specific user-facing functionalities. So.
Right. Just as a side note concerning the API documentation, what I resorted now for the moment, this will be basically also my final documentation for the project. I've just picked up the REST endpoints or API endpoints that the project is using. They are not using everything. So it's mostly around creating clients, updating reading clients and groups, and the loan products and the loan APIs. And so what I've done is I've cherry-picked these things from the existing documentation, but I enhanced it a little bit. So I'm using ASCII-Doc for the documentation, because of the syntax highlighting, it looks a little bit nicer. And I'm creating in parallel templates for Postman. I don't know if everyone knows that. It's that REST API test tool. It's available as a standalone application and as a Chrome app. And just to have something, so this gives you also kind of an executable documentation, right? But you can immediately integrate it with command line tools and do integration testings on that level, and instead of manually clicking in a user interface.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just another shot at it. I don't know. For the moment, it works well for the people that I'm involved with, but you know, it's just another idea.
Is that something are you able to share that back with the community when it's ready, Alexander, or does that have to stay internal to the project? So
I can ask. So at the moment, all this is a private fork, but we are working on it so that we can share as much as possible.
Okay.
You know, including the code enhancements for the group loans and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Well, please, take some time, Alexander, when you have a chance. All of these, ideas or improvements to the developer and API documentations. Try and group them together in one cohesive project, as I think that would be a good idea to have out there. So, and hopefully, you'll be able to share the work you've already done with the community soon too.
Yeah, I mean, I've put the private fork in parallel, and I'm continuously updating from the upstream Fineract project. So if they decide tomorrow that we can merge it back, then it should be pretty much in good shape.
Good, great. Okay, thanks, Alex, for all that good feedback and discussion. For others on the call, are there any, feedback you have on some of the ideas we have listed here, or any, other?
Yeah, just giving you a heads up that if we implement some of the security features usually available in these kind of apps, like Postman access will probably get broken. Not exactly broken, like you have to supply different types of tokens to make APIs work. So the interactive documentation will become slightly different.
Oh, thanks, Avik. And then Alex, did you run into any of those challenges you've been working on interactive documentation? How did you get around it?
I mean, my biggest challenge was actually when I was using, I used a couple of tools here, right? So first I used Swagger with the Java annotations, because that gives you like the documentation right where it should be at the code level, right? The challenge here is that the REST implementations always have the JSON part just in a string, right? And so if you have, for example, a post endpoint, then you don't get like a Java object, you get a string blob. And that kind of defeats the help that you get automatically with the Swagger annotations, because then you have to use, they have a feature for that, so you can define manually the structure of the JSON that is transmitted on that endpoint. But if these things would be already a Java object, and I don't entirely, but I'm involved with the project maybe for 2 years, so I don't know what the decision was at the moment when this was implemented. So what happens then is you get the JSON content, the JSON body in a string, and then it gets parsed, and then we are accessing the attributes with constants, and then we are creating Java beans. And nowadays you get that basically for free. And if we would have already like these Java beans on the, let's say, on the function as function parameters, then it would be a lot easier. Like it is right now, there's a lot of manual work involved. Concerning the Postman templates, this is basically manual work. I didn't have an idea at the moment how to generate these automatically based on the Mifos endpoints. Although I have to say I did a quick test with these Swagger annotations that I created in that private fork. And let's suppose I would have covered all the API endpoints. It's actually quite easy. Once you have a Swagger manifest, like a description of your API, then it's very easy to create templates in Postman. There's an import function that gives you immediately all the stuff that you defined. So that would be very easy. And concerning the ASCII documentation, well, this is I've done this manually, so there is no trick and no tool that I'm using there, no templates, right? So that's it.
Oh, Avik, did you have anything else to add? So.
Can you repeat that? I didn't understand the first part.
My point was that if we add CSRF protection, cross-site request forgery and all, then those tokens will need to be generated on each API interaction. And if you add one more level like Instagram has, that each API call goes with a unique token, and one-time password pool kind of is maintained. So those kind of increases the barrier to use Postman, because you need to authenticate and then from the API response copy those to your headers.
But can't you do this because you have I'm not sure if I'm entirely understanding, but are you talking about OAuth tokens?
Yeah, kind of like that.
Right, because I kind of have the same issue because there's another API involved. So basically, I have a kind of a reverse proxy in front of Mifos. It's a little bit more complicated, but you could think of it like this. And there is a similar situation with the tokens, and I think you can solve it actually with in the environment variables that you have available in Postman. So from the top of my head, I can't give you now, like a recipe, but I'm pretty sure that you can achieve this, because there is a little bit of a scripting possibility that you have in Postman. So you could do the authentication, store it in an environment variable, and then reuse it for the other templates. So they have this covered actually.
Yeah, the environment variable should probably do the trick.
Right.
Okay, so well, I've got you can find the current list of ideas on the wiki, just under Google Summer of Code 2017 ideas, and I'll send the link out to everyone. But if everybody, could begin, cleaning up that page and expanding upon some of the ideas we have listed out there. And we started initially, doing that, but some of the ideas I had listed in this presentation, I'll move over here, and we need to begin fleshing these out. So use this as the place where if you have an idea, just start putting down the details there, and then we'll make sure, by the time our application's due, all the corresponding details are there. And I think, where we need a lot more clarity is more on like some of the enhancements and improvements and ongoing work to the web app. So Pranjal, I'll let you, put your thinking cap and discuss with Gaurav and others, so we have some solid ideas there. And maybe Pranjal, you might have some thoughts on the configuration wizard we were talking about earlier too. So
Yep. All right, we'll do that.
okay, and so we have a couple more minutes. I have another meeting starting on the hour, so I just want to see if there are any other questions from individuals on the call. But if not, I want to just first off thank everybody for joining. Apologies for the brief technical difficulties, but I'm looking forward to getting a good application for Summer of Code in place. And then we are going to start having our community meetings regularly again. So if you're a partner or a developer and want to share either experiences working on deployment or share some work you've been working on, feel free to reach out, as we'd like to showcase that during upcoming community meetings. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, I'll conclude the meeting. I'll send along the recording, and I'll send along the links to the various Summer of Code sites. But please, keep thinking about ideas that would be good and continue adding to this document. And now, send an email to everybody that's shown interest in mentoring and make sure your information's up to date on this wiki page. But I'll need your help in coming up with a good list of ideas so we can apply to Google with a solid application. Okay.
I had one question.
Yes.
Didn't we have a Psycho integration done like 2 years back?
We had some work done on it, but it never got. There was an issue with the current version of Psycho. So yeah, so that is something I would like to see us actually complete and make production ready. And so that's what I was getting at with the ad hoc module. So I think that would be a project I'd like to see put there. So if you want to take the lead on putting in more details about that, that would be good, Avik. So
yeah, let's see.
Okay, yeah, I think that was the year. Was that the year you were, or was that the year after you did Summer of Code? I think. But I'll grab whatever old details we had on that and make sure it's in here. So.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, thanks, Avik. Thanks everybody for joining. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye, everyone.